Welcome home. We are WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are positively onto a weekend where the Birds are away, and they shall return home next week. Luke Jones will be there. He is covering all things Ravens and preseason tilts and all this foul weather going the other direction. Boy, the Birds went out up to Toronto, and I said to my wife, I said out loud while we were watching the game, because we quote you around my place, as well as Ben McDonald and Kevin Brown when they're doing their Abbott and Costello, Laurel and Hardy. It's more like Laurel and Hardy, I think, than anything else. I said, Luke thinks if Grayson doesn't come back, they're going to have a hard time winning the World Series. And then I said, you know what? I think they're kind of in trouble. You know what I mean? And then you go out night after night, you don't know what you're going to get from your starters. And that's a team that's they're a little troubled right now for the trading deadline and the pieces that they've acquired. The Rodriguez thing, the Webb thing in the bullpen. Yeah, I mean, and if they're not hitting the ball, they're not going to win. That is their profile 60 days out on playoff games that matter. They're going to have to hit the ball, man.
Yeah, as I wrote at BaltimorePositive.com, I mean, other than the nights where Corbin Burns pitches, or maybe Zach Eflin, but even Zach Eflin, it's not like he has a sub 2.5 ERA or something like that. He's a good pitcher, but he's not a great pitcher, as it pertains to starters anyway. They're not really built to win 2-1 games at this point. And let's be clear, there aren't many teams out there that are built to win 2-1. And I want to continue to say this because it's the truth. There's really no one that's standing out. I mean, the Phillies have come back to life a little bit on the West Coast after a 3-week struggle. But, Nestor, there's one team as we're going into the weekend. There's one team in baseball playing 600 ball. It's the Phillies. Cleveland's coming off of a 5-game losing streak. The Yankees just lost 2 out of 3 to the Angels, who stink. And the Orioles, of course, lose 2 out of 3 to Toronto. I mean, you're just kind of looking at this and you're saying about the saving grace for the Orioles for how they've played really since the final week of June is that all the other teams that we kind of fancy ourselves thinking are the really good teams that are vying for a number 1 seed or a number 2 seed in their respective leagues, they've scuffled as well. So beyond saying that, this is a team that I think if you just look at it, and this was trending this way anyway, with the pitching injuries they've had over the course of the 2024 season, but they've got to swing the bats because that's what they do best. I mean, even with the lousy July that they had, they're still a top 5 team in terms of runs per game. They've got a profile like that more often than not, or they're going to really struggle to win games. And I think Thursday night was a perfect example of that. Now, they score 4 runs in the ninth inning after many people like myself had turned it off. And I turned it on just as Santander flies out to end the game. But they've got to score runs. And I mean, Kevin Gausman, give him credit. It hasn't been a good year for him, especially pitching at Rogers Center, but he pitched well on Thursday night. But if the Orioles aren't going to score runs and they're not going to swing the bats at a high level, then yeah, more often than not, they're going to really struggle to win games because, I mean, we saw it. Dean Kramer, as it stands right now, optimism for Grayson Rodriguez not being out too long aside, he's their number 3 starter right now. I mean, there is no one else. I mean, okay, Cade Povich is in the minors. Cole Irvin's back at AAA after being outrighted. Chase McDermott's out. I mean, who else is there? I mean, this reminds me a little bit of the Ravens a few years ago when you lose so many guys in the secondary and suddenly you just say, like, what do you really expect is going to happen? So I don't say that to be flippant or that the season's over, or even to your point of how you started our conversation where, if they're down to Corbin Burns and Zach Eflin as your only truly established starting pitchers that you have any level of real confidence in,
And you
because
have a bullpen that
choppy at best.
has been questionable from the beginning. It has never looked like a really good, not even in June when they're winning a lot of games, right? It never looked like the bullpen was going to be a strength of this operation. And we talked about it for, 90 days, right? Really 6 months. We talked about what is the bullpen going to look like, and it's August. That's still, I don't want to call it a dumpster fire, but it's certainly a massive question mark. That is the biggest question mark on the team, has been all year. Not whether they can hit the ball or score 4 runs or piss you off that you turn them off in the 7th inning or fall asleep and then wake up and find out that the bottom of the lineup scored some runs because, I mean, Mayo's going to hit too. I mean, like, I don't know if it's going to be this week, this month. We said that about Holland. He's 22 years old. He hits 30 home runs at AAA. Stop. He'll be okay. He's got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Holiday's figured it out. I don't know where they are with Westberg being available in October, any of the pitching that is Webb and Rodriguez and guys out, and then just what Soto is and what Dominguez is going, what any of these guys are good, the new guys are going to be. Rogers so far, okay. I mean, I don't. The ceiling on these guys feels like Dean Kramer, and I'll say this about Dean Kramer because I probably beat him up more privately than I do on the radio or whatever because I do like his hair, I like his swagger, I like Dean Kramer. I would party with Dean Kramer. If I had a media credential, I would know Dean Kramer. Because I don't, I guess I could say whatever I want. But I texted you when he walked the second guy. And I didn't even take the Twitter. I mean, I said to my wife, I'm like, this is their 3 starter if this is a playoff game. And that's not a playoff team they're playing. Let's start with that. All of the above. And I said, I don't trust Dean Kramer. Like, he's taking the ball tonight. I see him. I put the pregame on, and whoever's I missed the pregame, actually. I came in. I don't even know if it was Melanie. I guess Melanie, or I don't even know who did it. But Ben's on and Kevin's on, and he's walking in because it was 7:07 start. So they don't start the games like it's 7:01. You get up at 6:57, and can I plug a sponsor, new sponsor?
Yeah.
Cooper's.
Yeah.
I had Cooper's gumbo because I ate the blackened tuna the day before. And we're going to be doing the oyster tour. We're going to be doing the show at Cooper's second Friday, like Friday 13th, 14th, whatever that weekend is. They're doing the oyster tour, oyster festival down at in Fells Point. So I'll be doing the show down there. So I'm eating my gumbo, dude. I had like the Guy Fieri gumbo, right? So I got my bowl. I'm up. Kramer's walking in from the bullpen, and I'm like, I don't trust Dean Kramer. And then I'm thinking to myself that. And then 2 guys on, nobody out. I'm texting you. I'm like, reminder, I don't trust Dean Kramer. So these are the things I do. I don't do this to be flippant on Twitter, but this is how I really I'm viewing this. And we haven't had a whole lot of pennant race baseball to talk about around here, but oh my God, they start to feel a little. I thought something that will make Joe Enoch laugh. And I don't know. How old were you in like 99, 2000? You read the papers. You were a smart kid, right? You were 17 years old then, right? 18 years old.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Well, Angelos used to do a lot of crazy-ish, right? Like, but my 2 good-looking sons. You probably remember that quote. But this was the best one when they started losing. And it wasn't John Miller's fault, and it wasn't Davey Johnson's fault, and it's probably 2001, 2, 3. He blamed it on, must be that old black cat. Do you remember the old black cat?
I do.
I knew I'd make you smile. So I mean, like, I thought when the Rodriguez thing happened, I'm like, I just gotten soaked off a yoga mat. My eyes are bleary. It was kind of like that morning when the bridge went down. We were together, and I'm like just trying to read my phone, and I'm like, this must be the old black cat.
I mean, you just get to a point where Kyle Bradish, John Means, Tyler Wells, Grayson Rodriguez, questionable until we get a little more definitive timetable in terms of a return. I mean, the early indications that Brandon Hyde gave in Toronto a couple days ago seemed to lend itself to some optimism and it not being as serious as it was last year. And then you go in the bullpen and, knowing that Tyler Wells, whether he's going to be in your rotation or whether guys like me thought, maybe he would be an interesting back end bullpen arm as the year goes on. You don't have him. Danny Coulomb, who we haven't mentioned, who is still on track to be ready at some point in September, but is he going to be Danny Coulomb, or is it going to be Danny Coulomb trying to round in the form?
Dude, I've said for years, where's
Webb.
the cavalry coming? And when the cavalry's all injured right now, and you're like, he'll be fine, he'll be fine, he'll be fine. I wouldn't feel good about the Ravens having 3 guys out in December, and they're like, he'll be back for the playoffs. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I mean, sure, he'll be able to hit a 99-mile-an-hour fastball when he hasn't seen one, and there's no buoy to go to because it's September 23rd. And I mean, we played some of those games last year, right? Like Means was going to be kind of available and wasn't, right? And all of these, dude, I don't want to be mean, but I call it fool's gold. There comes a point where it becomes fool's gold because, much like Bill Parcells said, you are what you are right now. And what they are right now is not what they were 8 weeks ago,
Right.
what they've been designed to be. They're a hobbled horse right now. They really are. To your point, Yankees, Guardians, all that, but I don't love what's going on right now. I mean, I don't know how you could.
Right. And again, there's a lot of season left. So that's a dangerous proposition when you think about it through the lens of you're you're kind of holding on for dear life with what you have with your pitching as it is, let alone thinking about what could very well happen, which is having another pitching injury or two, because it's just how this works. But there is also a lot of season left. And you do have other arms in the bullpen, as we talked about at the trade deadline. Now, it hasn't gone well for Gregory Soto. So Anthony Dominguez, for the most part, has been pretty good. So you have other guys in that bullpen. You always have an opportunity to change the narrative, right? And again, we'll continue to go back to where the Arizona Diamondbacks were at this time last year, where the Texas Rangers were at this time last year. And I can give you any number of other examples. So for me, it's still not at all about, oh my gosh, are they going to miss the playoffs or anything like that? No, they're still in great position. I mean, they're still right there for the best record in the AL. I mean, Cleveland, the Yankees, and the Orioles have all had their struggles, right? And they've all had their times where, all right, maybe they're getting back on track and then they stub their toe again. So you have that. But as it stands, as they're presently constructed, where have they suffered more attrition? Where have they suffered more injuries? It's absolutely on the pitching side. So that's where I'll continue to say that they need their bats to show up on a nightly basis. And again, on Thursday, it was a little, too late. They score 4 times in the ninth inning. I appreciate the fact that they didn't completely give up, but they also did not do much for 8 innings in Thursday night's game. And when Dean Kramer's pitching, when Trevor Rogers is pitching, when Albert Suarez, who's going to start down at the Trop this weekend and is back in the starting rotation, when he's on the mound, they need their offense to come to play on those nights, because what are you realistically expecting? Now, Dean Kramer, look, you can't walk Dalton Varsho, who's hitting right around the Mendoza line twice in front of Vlad Guerrero Jr., who has just been absolutely on fire the last few weeks. I mean, that's something that I won't, he's not going to get off the hook for.
By the way, when
There've
you
been
see Dalton Varsho, do you think of Gary Varsho, or am I like every single time, or am I just old enough? Play too much
I don't. I mean,
Strat-O-Matic?
I just see a guy who plays a great center field and robs them of base hits and all that. But
It is stunning when I watch them how I like knew these kids' parents.
yeah, no,
Not
I
just on
hear
a
you.
baseball card, but it was kind of that way with Buddy Bell. And my dad would say, I remember Gus Bell, you know what I mean? Like, or whoever the lineage people, but baseball's great like that. I mean, it
Oh,
really is,
totally.
especially when you get to be 55 and, you see Boone's running around. And my aunt lived down the street from Ray Boone in San Diego, right? So, 1954, so these families, Ripkins, right? I mean, Ripkins.
Hmm.
We get, excuse me, Iron Splash. Make sure I get that right. Iron Splash. I'll have a letter for him next month too on his anniversary. But yeah, this is the issue with Kramer, like you pointed out. I don't know what I'm getting, dude. And it's rarely strike one in total command of knowing what he's doing. And I'll point this out. I don't want to pile on him because I really like him. I do. Um, he's a remnant of the Machado deal. Um, I for me, the demonstrative behavior. I brought this up. I mean, I literally was doing yoga on the floor. I'm doing like a dead bug, like to get my back strong, so I don't look the way I looked 3 years ago. And I'm saying to my wife, I'm like, dude, he's gonna melt down. You know what I mean? Well, once something goes wrong, when the ball gets booted or whatever, And there's been a long strain of that I've witnessed around here of Sidney Ponsones, and I can just go through a whole bunch of pitchers, Cabrera. I mean, I'll give you names of guys that once the first thing got bad, and this was to Joe Flacco, and that's what I was doing, dead bug. I said, Flacco and I would sit in his locker, and he would over and over and over again talk about never showing up a teammate, never showing fire at anyone, walking off whether you threw a touchdown or interception the same way. He had that demeanor. His father taught him that. And there's something about losing your cool that usually for me, you wind up losing the game when you lose your cool. And whatever losing the cool is. And for me, Kramer is, and Ben's always, old Dino, he's going to hold it together. And the cheerleading section, while this is going on and I'm watching it and I'm like, oh no, please. And he kind of held it together a little bit first inning, right? I mean, like what you don't want is 2 1/3, but you didn't get much better than that, really. Once the home run happened, it's like there's the big one, and this is the one that's going to chase him out before he even gets to the 5th inning. This is the one that's going to put him behind. This is the one that's going to tax the bullpen, and it's like, all right, 5 days from now, is it going to be different? I don't know, dude. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Based on the
look,
VAR show at bat. I hated to interrupt you on that, but that's all I have with baseball is old-ish.
well, I mean, I think, if you looked at Kramer the last couple times out, I thought his final stat line didn't look as good as he had actually pitched in those outings, in part because of their defense. We've talked about the offense. The defense has also had some times where someone like Dean Kramer's on the hill where, man, you better defend for him because, again, it's not like Corbin Burns where okay, Corbin Burns gets base runners, and I get it. Sometimes, he allows stolen bases and that whole weird thing that he has with the pitch timer. But it's Corbin Burns, and he still finds ways to get out of it way more often than not, right? Dean Kramer's not going to be able to do that. Dean Kramer at his best is a league average starting pitcher, which, by the way, still has value. When he's at his best, you'll take him as a number 4, number 5 starter, but he's now severely miscast because of the injuries that they have, and he's not pitching particularly well. I mean, to your point, a little bit of tough luck in the first inning. Walks Varsho, can't do that in front of Vlad. I mean, you just can't do that, period. Gives up 3 runs. They're down 3-0. You're in a position then where, to your point, is he going to get through 2 or 3 innings at that point? Put it together, actually pitch pretty well, second, third, fourth inning. Defense was shaky, and he was able to get out of that at one point as well, and then gets to the 5th inning, and you're out of the game at that point. He's out of the game, and his ERA now is 4.7, which
Yeah, but he gives up the big fly. Would it have mattered if he gave that up in the 5th or even the 6th? Right? Like if he gave 5 1/3 and 5, I don't know.
I mean,
really,
you'll always take more. I mean, at this point, you'll always take your starter giving you more outs. I mean, there's no
But if there are
question.
more outs that lead to the Earl Weaver, as
Oh,
they say, in the 6th inning, and he leaves with 5 or 6 runs at that point, because there's going to be if he survives the first spill, I'm with you. He can get to the 4th or 5th inning. I'm just it's all the above. It's command. It's strike one. It's what happens after something bad happens. When something bad happens, and defensively, you're putting Kobe Mayo out of third base. You just, there's things, and they haven't. Henderson's been not so good, right? Like they've just been off. And the one thing I wrote down to talk to you about today as we go into a weekend here where they're going to measure themselves again against Tampa, then Washington, the whole deal. We're going to be having the cheat throws a couple weeks from now. They're going to get a taste of some better teams as well. Um, the notion that it was going to be easy, and they won 101 games last year, and they had a number 1 starter, and nothing was going to go wrong. Dude, I'll go back to some of our conversations in late May, and they're still never been swept. All the, and you would laugh at that and you had 2 months to make that Arlington argument before they actually got swept. And I don't know, man. They've been a different team. I feel differently about them on a night-by-night basis about ways they're going to win, ways they're going to lose, ways they're going to stay in games. And to your point, these walk-off miracle, Taylor Teagarden, okay, maybe it's Mateo on this team or Urias or whoever that fringe guy is. Even Kalzer back in April was playing the hero role, right? They haven't had a whole lot of hero moments lately and comebacks and all of that. And the bullpen, I mean, the bullpen's going to be involved 7 nights a week. It just is, even with Burns. The bullpen's going to be
Yeah.
involved 7 nights a week. How many nights is it going to be really good?
Well,
And it's going to have to be way better. And how many nights are they going to score 4 runs in the ninth inning and still lose 7-6, man?
I mean, I agreed. There's still 20 games over 500. I mean, even over the last 6 weeks where it's felt as bad as it's felt at times, their record over the last 6 weeks has not been a disaster. I mean, their high water mark was 24 games over 500. They're 20 right now. So we keep looking at it through that lens, and I get it. They've been mediocre for 6 weeks now, but
Win one, lose one feels a lot different than what we were getting before.
sure, no
It does.
question.
Yeah.
Although at the same time, like everything you're talking about in terms of feel and 100+ win pace and all that, none of that matters when you get to October. Like all those feelings or how dominant they are or how many games they win the division by. We learned that last October. None of that matters.
Yeah, Gunnar
So
Henderson hits 3 home runs in the first game.
so
They're going to win.
right. So again, and I don't say that to be flippant. I don't say that to act like I don't have any concerns about this team. I do, but I'll also point out and this is not me spiking the ball that I was right because I would not have thought this back in June when they were finishing up that series in the Bronx, but Nestor going into the year, I picked them to win the division, but I picked them to also just win 94 games. For what they did last year and the amount of health that they had overall, save for Batista at the very end of the season, and how young they were, and just how everything played out. They didn't get swept. I mean, they had amazing record against the AL East, all those different things. It doesn't, it quite frequently, even for the best team, even for the team that wins it all, even for the team that's left standing in early November and celebrating at the pitcher's mound and raising the what did Rob Manfred call it? The hunk of metal, right? The World Series trophy. You'll find stories of injuries and trials and tribulations. Off field things can happen. Uh, just not playing well, all these different things that happen, and it tests your mettle. I mean, I said this a few weeks ago, and I will still say this, and I'll still say this even come November when the season's over, regardless of how it winds up. What the Orioles are going through right now, this young club as it's presently constructed, and now that you've added Holiday to the mix, you've added Mayo to the mix, Westberg will be back in the mix. The next wave of prospects, which isn't going to be coming, it's not imminent, but Basayo in a year and a half, whatever it is, these guys are all going to be better in the long run for what they're going through right now. And I know that sounds like a wishy-washy kind of thing. I'm not blowing smoke here and saying everything's fine right now, but you've got to go through adversity. You've got to go through that. I mean, we made the talking point just a couple days ago when we were talking about the Ravens with Joe Flacco and that 2012 team that I said to you, I don't think they would have won in 2012 if Lee Evans and Billy Cundiff do what they were supposed to do in the AFC Championship game the year before, and they won in 2011. I don't think, for one, I don't know if Ray Lewis comes back. I don't know what happens with Ed Reed. I don't know if Joe Flacco goes on the same
That
kind
would
of
have
run
been
2
one
years
hell
in a
of a
row.
party on Maryland Avenue
Yeah,
in downtown Indianapolis that night, brother.
but you don't know, and everything when you
Maybe that's what I'll
accomplish.
do I'll write a fiction novel when I'm done with all this on what might have been.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? But the point is with that, everything you go through when you win a championship, when you do something of real consequence in October or January or early February or NBA or the NHL in June, you've gone through adversity at some point in time. And in some cases, it's earlier in your life with individual players, all of that. But the point is, this is really difficult to do. And there's a lot of failure baked in. And when you have young players as decorated as some of the Orioles' young prospects have been, you have some of these guys who
Meteoric rise. They've
haven't
never done
really
anything but gone up, ever.
right. And that was one thing I think that was appealing about Adley Rutschman. If you go look at him at Oregon State when he first got there, remember, he struggled with the bat. He kind of rebuilt his swing. So there was kind of that evidence for him individually. Now, current struggles aside, but him way back when having that profile of a growth mindset, someone that has gone through something and wants to get better. Now, these young guys all have that in the sense of Gunnar Henderson was not a top 5 overall pick. Gunnar Henderson was a high school kid who had kind of a weird swing, but they saw raw tools and raw talent, and he had the ability to want to go to work. I was just reading it again with Jackson Holliday, some of the work that he put in, not just when he was sent back down, but when he was drafted. He was at their minor league camp, and he was looking at video of Gunnar Henderson, and he told basically the Orioles player development people, I want you to make me like him. Looking at Gunnar Henderson at that point in time, who had made, was on the cusp of making his major league debut back in, late 2022. So, the point is, this is a really difficult game. You're going to go through struggles. For every year that you might win 101 games, or you might blow through the postseason field and win the World Series, and it's just your time, you're also going to have times where you struggle, and you're going to have times where it looks really difficult. The Orioles are absolutely going through that right now. They're in that right now. And the injuries are the part of where you look at this and say, boy, their margin for error is way smaller than it was 6 weeks ago, let alone talking about this on February 1st when we thought that their rotation was going to be Corbin Burnes, Kyle Bradish, Grayson Rodriguez, John Means, and then maybe Dean Kramer in the number 5 spot. Long before Eflin or Trevor Rogers, or that we even knew who Albert Suarez was, let alone that he'd be starting games for them in a pennant race. So things aren't going to go to plan, and they're really, their metals being tested right now. And we can debate how well they're handling it. I think in some ways they've handled it okay. In other ways, you say, hey, you got to pick it up. That defense that they played over the first 3 months of the season, where's that been? The pitching, again, Dean Kramer needs to be better. We've seen Dean Kramer be better than what we've seen in 2024. No question. He's got to pick it up. Trevor Rogers has got to pick it up for them, coming from Miami. And, they need Zach Eflin to pitch more like he did last year than what he was for the first 3.5 months with the Rays, which was not bad, but not as good as he was last year. They need Adley Rutschman to get back to being Adley Rutschman. Go down the list. They need the power bat to come back for Gunnar Henderson down the stretch. They need Jordan Westburg to come back healthy. They need Jackson Holliday to keep this up. But he's a rookie and he's 20 years old. And you also know that, pitchers are going to adjust again, and he's going to have to adjust back. So I don't say all those things to just say, oh, it's over, or, oh, this team's not going to be able to make a run or anything like that. But boy, yeah, they do have a smaller margin for error. And you really hope that Grayson Rodriguez can, 1, come back, and 2, look like Grayson Rodriguez, because that would be huge for them. You really hope that Danny Coulombe and hopefully Jacob Webb, and again, Jacob Webb with elbow inflammation, sometimes that's a really serious thing, and sometimes he could be back in 3 weeks. But, you're hoping for the best. They have to stay healthy from here on out. I mean, at some point in time, the dam just breaks. And as I said this so many times back in 2021 with the Ravens, where at some point in time, next man up's a T-shirt slogan and nothing more. I mean, no one has endless depth of guys that are going to come in and do the job.
Yeah, but I've seen
you.
what McDermott and Povich and these guys look like, and I've seen what Irvin like. So yeah, we can debate that all day long. I'll just say this, and I wrote this down. We keep waiting for the pitching to be a strength of the team, and it felt that way during that press conference in May when there were 6 starters and Means and Brad, right? And then we're like, okay, so we need to make it a strength. We know we can hit the ball. We know we're going to play defense. At least we thought we were going to play defense. We got speed. We got this. We got bench. We got, we got a manager knows what he's doing. We're geniuses. We got a leader in Rutschman. We got all of the pieces. And dude, I just looked up and saw the date and where we are in August, and thought, my God, we're 3 weeks removed from the All-Star game, where we had the pitcher, we had the catcher, we had the home run, but we're first place. We're we're the defending champion. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow. And I am committed at this point that the pitching's not going to be a strength. And when they get bounced out at some point, you'll look at it and say the pitching cost them. And if they don't get bounced out and win the World Series, you'll say, well, Soto and Dominguez, these guys had a little more pedigree. Webb came back, and, because they're not going to do it as comprised. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, they're going to need a couple of miracles, because what I'm seeing here, what they're putting out there right now, I don't think is going to get it done. And to your point, maybe other teams have attrition in other ways as well, and maybe we view it differently once you actually Barry Bloom wrote to me. He's in Hawaii this week, so I told him to go to Leota's for some coconut cream pie, and he'll come on next week. He said, "You guys are better off being a wild card." That's what he said. There's your 60 years of wisdom,
Yeah.
and I think to myself, to your point, it's throwing darts in October, and they can score 14 runs in October. Like they're capable of hitting the ball. There's no doubt about that. And that's how it's going to have to happen around here. They're going to profile like that Peyton Manning team that couldn't play defense, or, I mean, they're going to be a lopsided team that has a chance.
Yeah, and I mean that's why even before the Grayson Rodriguez injury, I mean, I pointed out, you look at how Arizona profiled last year. I mean, they had two starters that they felt really, really good about. Now their bullpen really performed. Um, you look at them this year. Now they played way better baseball of late. Meaning like the last 6 weeks compared to where they were. But you look at it. Look how fleeting that was. They make it all the way to the World Series. They're not the best team in the NL this year. So
Well, the Indians had the best bullpen in baseball 2 weeks ago, right? And they would be them and the Phillies, and the trading deadline would be indicative of this. And God, we're only a week out on the trading deadline now. Feels like everything's a week's a month in this league, right? Because
yeah,
they play so much, literally. But the Phillies and the Indians, or excuse me, Guardians. I don't mean to do that. I just
it's
So it's
it's fine.
there. I've gotten the R out of Washington, but it feels to me like if it's about bullpens and how they've performed during the season, and you think that you're reading the racing form and you're like, horses for courses, they were great in June, they were great in July, they'll be great in October. If you believe that, it's going to be the Guardians and the Phillies to that point, bullpen wise. If you just believe in bullpens, but that's not the way it works either. But it's the way it works when you do have 5 or 6 guys that can do it, and
Yeah.
and I don't know. Look, dude, I made a huge case for Cano on Thursday, Thursday morning with you. People can hear it. They can find it at Baltimore Positive. I made this case that he could be their savior. And you're like, he doesn't have enough swing and miss. And I'm like, well, of all of these people, he's the one I've seen over the last 2 years that looks like he's at least had a flash that for a couple of weeks, he might do something spiritual,
Oh,
like in the way Evaldi did last year for the Rangers or whatever, right?
and that's why to me there was some appeal to adding Sir Anthony Dominguez, who go look at what he did for Philadelphia a couple years ago. Now, has he pitched at that level since then? No, but go look at what he did for them a couple years ago. I mean, he was a guy that at times was closing games and certainly was pitching a lot of high leverage. I mean, Gregory Soto, who's been a punchline for the Orioles so far, uh, you know, pitched pitched better in his last time out in a low leverage situation, but this is a guy who was an all-star caliber closer, albeit for a second division team a few years back. So I think when you add arms like that, you're looking for an upside play, right? You're looking for someone to get hot. Eloy Jimenez was the same thing offensively, for the fact that the Orioles traded a bag of baseballs, right? I mean, that was that kind of deal to get Eloy Jimenez and see if he can get on a heater. In fact, Mike Elias basically used that term, see if they can get Eloy hot down the stretch. So, I mean, that's what you're looking at here. I'm not saying that those are high proposition bets. And obviously, I've had my concerns about the bullpen. If there's one critique I've had of Mike Elias for 2 years now, it's not doing enough to the bullpen and kind of sort of going the approach of, well, let's go for the upside guy, or let's go for the guy that we can quote fix. And look, they've been able to fix some people. I mean, Yennier Cano being what he's been, Jacob Webb being what was a waiver claim and turning him into a real reliever for you this year. Danny Coulomb, who had a solid career up until that point, but kind of unlocked a new level pitching for the Orioles the last couple years. So it's not as though they haven't had success stories doing that, but those are still, they're not high risk plays, but in many cases, those aren't high reward plays either. I mean, for every guy that you might get that catches lightning in a bottle like Cano for half a season and is an all-star caliber pitcher, otherwise he's been good. And I don't say I'm not knocking Yennier Cano, but consider where he was when the Orioles acquired him. He's not going to suddenly become this amazing guy that you could throw in the ninth inning and feel great about, right? He's not going to just become Felix Bautista. I mean, Felix Bautista, another guy that they took to another level. So if there's one criticism I have of Mike Elias is maybe not being a little more proactive and aggressive in addressing your bullpen, because Nestor, I've been consistent on this. I've talked about this in spring training, and that's before losing Coulomb or Jacob Webb, right? I mean, I said at that time I didn't know if they had enough in their bullpen. Now, you can't forecast. You can't. I don't care how much anyone wants to talk about next man up mentality. If you're going to lose 3 or 4 starting pitchers in the same way that if you lose 4 or 5 guys in your secondary or whatever it might be, you lose multiple injury, you have
Well,
multiple
just
injuries.
look at the Ravens in 21 and 22.
I mean, you
Beyond
just get to
Lamar,
right.
there
You
were
just
more injuries. Yeah.
yeah, you just get to a point where you just say,
Ronnie
what are
Stanley, Humphrey, and Lamar were all out at various points, right? They're 3 best, highest paid players. Mark Andrews in on that as well. Like, that's one of the reasons the Ravens haven't won a Super Bowl. Last year, a little different, but
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. I mean, 21, the season was not over before it started because you had Lamar Jackson, and look, they were still, before he got hurt in December, they were still in the mix for the number 1 seed. So again, franchise quarterback is a different animal than anything you see in baseball. Corbin Burns is the
So
closest.
you lose a 2, a 3, and a 4. That's a quarterback to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's getting close. It's close to that territory, at least, no question. So, I mean, you just get to a point where I don't want to just say you throw your hands up, but it's kind of like, what do you expect their rotation to be the rest of the way? I mean, especially if Grayson Rodriguez doesn't come back. If he does, and Grayson's back pitching Labor Day and looks like Grayson and stacks a few good starts and looks like a healthy Grayson Rodriguez, then hey, that changes things a lot, because then you're back to feeling pretty good about your top 3 in a projected postseason rotation. But yeah, the bullpen right now, I mean, Brandon Hyde and Mike Elias and the coaching staff, it's very much a case of, what is this going to look like? Trying to figure out the formula that's going to work. And again, it might be all matchup dependent and by committee. And as I've said to you, I am not at all married to the idea that Craig Kimbrell must be the closer in the 9th inning. I mean, I'm just not. If there are times where the matchups look like it might be a CNL Perez night, or Sir Anthony Dominguez against right-handers who struggle against, with sliders, then by all means go in that direction. But they've got to find the formula that works. They've got to get enough guys pitching well that you feel, hey, this is how we proceed if we're up 1 run in the 6th inning. How are we getting to the 9th inning? And this is kind of how we look at it. And obviously that's going to vary a little bit because every opponent that you face has a different lineup and a different lineup construction. But boy, they've got to figure that out. I mean, they've got pieces. It's not as though they're completely devoid of talent, but I mean, it's just, you lose, you don't have Danny Coulomb, you don't have Jacob Webb, you don't have the 4 starters that they don't have right now. Then yeah, it's just it's more difficult to navigate. That's why, as I wrote at BaltimorePositive.com on Thursday morning, that they're not built to win 2-1 right now. I mean, they're just not. Other than the nights that Corbin Burns pitches, that's when you have a shot to win 2-1, really. Otherwise, you better swing the bats. And no, I don't mean that they have to score 10 runs every night, because these pitchers have to perform. Dean Kramer, that was below the bar for what Dean Kramer can be when he's at his best. So yeah, that's not going to play, right? But the best case scenario, if Albert Suarez gives you 5 or 6 innings and allows 3 runs, maybe even 4 runs, which that's statistically not very good, but that's going to give you a chance to win. So on those days when they get those kind of outings from Suarez, Rogers, Dean Kramer, boy, you better score some runs, or yeah, you're probably going to end up losing, even if the bats come alive really late in the game like they did on Thursday night. So, all is not lost. The season is not over. This is not doom and gloom and they have no shot, because again, go through the list. Yankees just lost to the Angels in a series. All the talk about how the Red Sox played before the All-Star break. They haven't played, they've kind of maintained where they've been. It's not like they've really surged. Cleveland, 5-game losing streak. Remember all the talk about the Astros and how they had surged and they had cut into the Mariners lead and all that? The Astros have been a 500 team since then. They're 4 games over 500. So it's not like they continued that. They played great baseball to get back in this position, and then they've hovered. The Royals, they've played better of late, and they're an interesting young team, but they're 12 games over 500. Minnesota, I think, is quietly a team that we don't talk about a lot that might have a profile that maybe they can do a little bit, but they've got to beat good teams, and they've had opportunities this year against good teams in the AL and haven't fared very well. So,
if Clem Florio were here, he'd say it's not a 6 furlong race, right?
right.
We're going a mile and 3/8 here. And so
Yeah.
measuring a team at the 6 furlong, wherever you would say that, like, you're like, Minnesota's sort of coming on a little bit, right? Like, we're seeing the Red Sox next week. We'll see whether they're coming on or not. They think they are. That looked like a hiccup in the schedule. Now it looks like it could be a bump, right? They also have the Astros and the Dodgers in the
They do.
same week. Like the same week. How they're playing at that point, and we'll be getting together. By the way, Luke Jones can be found at Baltimore Luke. We're going to be doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour presented by the Maryland Lottery. I'll have the Gold Rush Sevens doublers to give away on the 23rd when the Cheat Stros come to town. Actually, a 4-game series. They come in on the 22nd on Thursday that week. We get the Nationals next week, all that. You got football going on. I'll give you a chance to wrap. I mean, I would just say my headline is I'm worried about the Orioles. I'm just worried
That's
about
fine.
them.
That's fair. I think that's fair. I think I would share that sentiment, but what I would also say is every other team that's somebody in the AL is worried about elements of their club and is worried about the fact that they're not playing great either. And I don't say that to be dismissive or to forgive away the things that aren't good about the Orioles right now, but they're right there. They're right there, and they're still really talented. I'll still take the Orioles lineup most nights against just about any in baseball. And I know that at times they're consistent, and we've seen that a little bit more, be a little more maddening over the last 5 weeks or so. But I'll still take that. I'll still take Corbin Burns in terms of an ace going up against just about any other team's ace. And, the rest of the pitching, that's where I shrug and say, boy, to your point, I don't know if I'd call it a miracle, but they need a few guys in their pen, and they need a couple more rotation pieces right now to find the best versions of themselves. How about that? Because they do have guys that have done it at a really high level in the bullpen. Sir Anthony Dominguez, Soto, obviously
Kimbrel.
Craig Kimbrel, Yennier Cano, if he can be more like the guy he was last year. And Cano's been pretty good of late. I'm not trying to be too dismissive of what you had said, but the point is these guys aren't going to suddenly transform into Cy Young candidates in the rotation. And in the bullpen, these guys aren't going to suddenly just become Felix Bautista. So you have to hope, one, that everyone stays healthy from this point on and you get a couple of these pitchers back. And two, that you can tweak and kind of make some adjustments with these guys to try to find a little more upside, find the best version of Sir Anthony Dominguez, which, by the way, is really good. If they can get us Dominguez from 22 with the Phillies for just 2 months, the last 2 months of the season, if they can get that, then that becomes a much more interesting bullpen with that. If they can get Gregory
Just
Soto,
if that happens alone,
you feel better.
It was a good trade deadline for them.
Feel better. You feel better. That doesn't mean that they're in the driver's seat with that, but you feel better than you do right now. So,
well, would tell me they addressed their most pressing need as we saw it. The starting thing, dude. I mean, once Rodriguez gets hurt, like, they brought these two guys in, and Eflin. I'm not the one to do the NFL draft report card on Monday morning and give him an A, give him a B minus, but I think you gave him a B minus or whatever. I mean, if Dominguez works out, it becomes an A on the face of it. Just if they have a guy that can close I was going to say 4-3 game. All right, with their pitching, 7-6 game, can close a 7-6 lead in the ninth inning. If they get a guy that can do that for the next 8 weeks, then it was a successful trading. It's an A at the trading deadline.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to give it.
And I'll go back, and this will be my final point because I know we're wrapping, but Kyle Bradish, John Means, Tyler Wells gave them a total of 15 starts this year. You knew Felix Bautista wasn't going to be in the bullpen. Danny Coulombe's is going to end up missing roughly half the season. Jacob Webb even though back in March, no one would have, Jacob Webb, we were wondering if he's even going to be on the team, let alone become a real bullpen piece for them. But you go down the list of things that have happened, and specifically on the pitching side with the injuries that they've had. I'll throw this out there. Jackson Holliday will be called up in April and struggle so badly that he's sent down and basically doesn't come back until August. If I had told you all those things back in March, I guarantee you would not be saying right now that the Orioles would be 20 games over 500. So that doesn't excuse anything moving forward, but the point is they are still in good position, mathematically speaking, in terms of the division race, in terms of their chances to be one of the top 2 seeds. So
they're capable. There's no doubt
see how
about
it
that.
plays out.
Yes.
So, but they need some of these guys, some of these pitchers specifically, and obviously on the offensive side too. And boy, they've got to defend better. I mean, that's something that's still creeping up too much during these games. Maybe it's been a little better. Gunnar Henderson's defense seems to have normalized back to more Gunnar Henderson like and not making as many errors as he was a couple
you
weeks
sit a
ago.
rookie next to him out there running
Yeah,
around.
and I probably just
day.
jinxed them anyway. Yeah. But the point is, some of the guys that they do have, yeah, they need the best version of Dean Kramer down the stretch, which still isn't great, but it's better than what it was on Thursday night. They need the best version of Trevor Rogers, which they're hoping the Orioles can make a couple adjustments. They need the best version of Zach Eflin, and certainly they need Corbin Burns to be Corbin Burns. On the bullpen side, same thing. You know, they need some of these guys to step up, quite frankly. And if they can, then they've got a shot. And in the same way that I'll continue to say, the postseason is so much more of a crapshoot than anyone wants to admit. I mean, the numbers just continue to support that year after year after year. If there's no better example that supports this, it's when were the Yankees in the World Series last? 15 years ago.
9, right.
15 years ago. And it's not for any lack of spending money or high expectations or postseason appearances or any of that. So that right there, it's just a very simplistic example to remind you it's quite random once you get into that field. So they're still in outstanding shape to get into that field. Now it's a matter of over the next 7 or 8 weeks, they've got to find some answers. They've got to find some improvement from within with some of these individuals. And if they can do that with at least a few guys in their pen, and if they can do that with a couple of these starters on the back end just to stabilize things, then, hey, they'll be in and let's go at that point. Roll the dice. You know, Buck Showalter talked about this. Billy Beane talked about this with Moneyball years and years and years ago, that you get to October, it's just a crapshoot. And now with 3 wild cards as opposed to 1 20 years ago, it's even more of a crapshoot. So, yeah, who's going to be Arizona this year? Who's going to be the Texas Rangers this year? We're still a long ways away from figuring that out. But, you know, the Orioles are in position. But, yeah, they've got to get better. You know, they've got to find some answers as it pertains to their bullpen in terms of these guys stepping up. And they certainly need more from Dean Kramer than what they got Thursday night, because for better or worse, he's their number 3 starter, number 4 starter right now. You know, unless you like Suarez better, which maybe you do, unless you like Rogers better, maybe you do. But point is, out of those 3, they need at least one of those guys to really emerge. And that's still assuming that Grayson Rodriguez comes back at some point, which, you know, we'll see, but that's still not a known. That's not an absolute at this point. So a lot of maybes.
Let's
in
go
there.
play baseball on an empty blimp
there.
all weekend. Let's go play some fake football this weekend.
Let's
enjoy some sunshine after 3 days of wind and rain. I was like the Wizard of Oz. I thought Glenda was going to show up. We're doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour, but more importantly, we're doing the Maryland Oyster Tour beginning on September the 5th. That's the day the Ravens kick off the season, if you haven't heard, against Chiefs. We're actually going to be at Coco's on the 4th. I have confirmation that the great Mark Viviano will be my co-host with a K, as well as Sig stopping by in Lauraville, near Gardenville, but Lauraville. So stop by. That'll be on the 4th of September. That's Wednesday to kick off the season. And then we're doing 26 oysters in 26 days, 26 ways. I found this place in Ocean City that's doing this Chipotle, honey, lime, chimichurri, baked thing that makes me want to. By the way, I'm going to Ocean City next weekend. We're going to be at Mako next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Confirmation from Senator Van Hollen. He's going to be stopping by. I had a bunch of different confirmations from different people. We're going to have a lot of political people on. We're going to talk about the election, talk about the country, talk about the business of Maryland, talk about the bridge, talk about important stuff around here. And when we get together and do our crab cake tour, Luke and I will be together on the 23rd for the Cheat Stros, game 2 of a 4-game series. The Maryland Lottery, as well as Liberty Pure Solutions, keeping our water crystal clear, as well as Jiffy Lube Multi-Care, firing Luke up for one more week of training camp out in Owings Mills. Birds come back next week against the Nationals, as well as the Red Sox next weekend. So Birdland alive, Birdland concerned, and all eyes watching baseball this weekend and fake football. He's Luke. You can find him at Baltimore Luke. I'm Nestor. You can find me anywhere the internet goes. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We never stop talking Baltimore positive.